All right, good morning, fifth graders. Again, it is Thursday, May 7th. I hope you're all having a good week, and I hope you've been able to get outside some when the weather is nice. All right, we are going to look at day 3 of your packet, and that is on pages 16 and 17. And we are going to continue with what we've been learning about text structure. And the title of this is Why Are the Oceans Salty? And then this one is Oceans and Seas. And it looks like we are going to have to, again, tell what the purpose is, the text structure, and evidence. So we're getting lots of practice with this. This is great information. We need to learn about text structure. It helps us when we answer questions about the text. All right, so paragraph 1 under Why Are the Oceans Salty? For much of history, it was a mystery why the oceans were salty. Different cultures, assuming that the oceans began as fresh water and only later became salty, came up with their own explanations. The Vikings related a story of a sailor dropping a magical salt grinder to the bottom of the ocean. People in the Philippines told of a giant who carried sacks of salt from island to island, but then accidentally dropped them all into the sea. Other cultures had similar stories to explain the cause of the ocean's saltiness. Scientists eventually figured out the truth. The stories were correct in one way. The amount of salt in the ocean has increased over time. Where did all the new salt come from? From the land. Most rocks contain salts, and over millions of years, the forces of wind, rain, and ice break down the rocks and release the salts. Rainfall carries the salts to rivers, and the rivers carry the salts into the oceans. As a result, the ocean is salty. All right, let's look at the next text, Oceans and Seas. Next article. All right. Some people use the words ocean and sea interchangeably, but these words refer to different things. An ocean is an enormous body of salt water, such as the Pacific or the Atlantic. In contrast, a sea is a smaller body of water, of salt water, such as the Mediterranean Sea between Africa and Europe. Oceans are so large that people view them as surrounding the continents. The opposite is true for seas. They are surrounded by other, larger geographic features. Some seas are entirely encircled by ocean. The Sargasso Sea in the northern Atlantic is an example of this. Other seas, such as Hudson Bay in Canada, are enclosed on some sides by ocean and other sides by land. Finally, a few seas, such as the Caspian in Asia, are completely landlocked within continents. Despite their differences, however, all seas have two things in common. They are made of salt water and they are smaller than the oceans. All right, so it gives you a little hint here. Close reader habits. So a close read is when you read it very carefully and maybe reread it or reread a sentence or two that you weren't sure of. So it's different than reading a novel that you're reading just for relaxation or just for fun. This is a close read that you're learning information from. So when you reread the articles, underline details that tell what each passage is about, and circle words and phrases that suggest the text structure. Okay, so you, since this is on tape, can always go back and replay this. But what they're going to ask for you to do down here is what text structure does the author of each passage mainly use to present information? Identify the purpose and text structure of each passage, then tell what evidence helped you figure out the structure. Look for words that show cause and effect or comparison and contrast. So that's something that you can do, is go back to your previous pages and gives you hints on the words that are under the compare contrast text structure, cause and effect text structure, and you can also go all the way back to, I believe this is page 12, and you would use this for cause and effect, and now this is compare and contrast. So you would use this set for comparison and this bottom set for contrast. All right, so let's go back. Where are we? Here it is. All right, so it is asking us, identify the purpose. Okay, so the purpose of passage 1, what do you think the purpose is? So let's, wait a minute, let me take that back off a minute. So you can really kind of tell right from the title. What is the author trying to tell you in this passage? All right, so the purpose of this, okay, the author's purpose is to tell why the oceans are salty. Okay, he includes the scientific reason. So we learned about from rocks, scientific reason, as well as stories people told over the years. Okay, the scientific one is the one that is the real reason, but people would often tell stories about why it was salty. All right, so I want you to think about the text structure. So you're going to pick between, right here, hold on. You are going to pick between cause and effect and compare and contrast. Now I want you to know that there are actually more structures than this, but since these are the ones we're practicing, this is why we're using these two. So do you think that this is cause and effect or compare and contrast? And what you can do is look for some key words that helps you decide. So what did the scientists tell you about why the oceans are salty? Okay, what caused them to be salty? They talked about the rocks. But then other people had all these ideas of this is why it's salty, and this is what happened which caused the ocean to be salty. So I think I've given you the hint on the structure. It's cause and effect, but I want you to find the evidence that shows that this text structure is cause and effect. Okay? All right, let's move down the page. All right, oceans and seas. All right, this passage right here. Okay, and they're talking about the difference. There, right there is a keyword, difference. That's contrast between oceans and seas, and it gives you numerous examples of how they're the same. They're both made of salt water, but then also how they're different, the many ways they're different. All right, so the purpose, we would say, oopsie, keep running into that, don't I? Let's see. Let's see, let me go back to text box. Okay, so oceans and seas, the author's purpose of oceans and seas, oops. What is he doing in oceans and seas? The author's purpose is to tell how oceans and seas are similar or alike, and how they are different. Well, right there, when you see that it's saying is tell how oceans and seas are alike, that's comparing them. And how are they different? That's contrasting them. So you know what the text structure is, compare and contrast. And then I want you to find the evidence, and there's just tons of evidence in there. You just pick a sentence that explains that he's comparing them or contrasting them. All right? All right, you'll do great on that. All right, so now it says share your charts. Look at the evidence you found for each text structure. How does each text structure support the author's purpose? If your partner has good evidence that you do not, add it to your chart. I know you don't have a partner, but just you can think about if there's any other evidence. All right. And then write. Explain how the text structure of each passage supports each author's purpose for writing. Use text evidence to support your response. Use the space provided on page 226 to write your answer. Be sure to quote words and phrases from each passage as evidence of its text. Well, I think we really took care of that right here. And I don't think we need to write that unless your teachers tell you specifically to, but I think we're good with what we've done so far. All right, guys, that is it for today, and we will see you tomorrow.